$190 US is the usual price of this Tcl20sc at the time of recording. For that much money, you could buy exactly 76 bottles of chocolate syrup. I did the math, but should you do that? Is the Tcl20sc fast? I wouldn't say fast, but it's quick enough to handle most day-to-day tasks well. The 20sc is running TCL UI version 3.0.2, which is TCL's version of Android 11, and it delivers a pretty vanilla Android experience with a few extra options like an edge bar and an app recommendation system. Overall, it seems well optimized for this hardware. Moving around the interface, launching apps, watching YouTube, and browsing the web are all fast enough that I never noticed it being slow, unless I was launching a game. The rear fingerprint scanner could be more responsive, but it's not annoyingly laggy, and it's been accurate. The hardware's an interesting mix of budget options. The 20sc is powered by the Snapdragon 460, an entry-level processor paired with 4 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM and either 64 or 128 gigs of storage. It's important to note that the 64 gig version uses eMMC storage, and the 128 gig version uses the faster UFS 2.1 storage. I tested out the faster 128 gig version for this review. You can also add up to 256 gigs of additional storage with a micro SD card. Gaming is the only thing that really struggles, but basic games play well. Just don't expect anything demanding to run well on this phone. Is the screen big and bright? The screen's very big, and generally bright enough. The 20sc has a very large 6.8-inch IPS LCD display, with a refresh rate of 60 Hz and a typical brightness of 450 nits. It's manageable in direct sunlight, but not great. With an HD Plus resolution of 1640 by 720 and a PPI of 263, it sounds like it wouldn't be a sharp display, but in reality, it looks just fine. And that might be due to some fancy tuning from TCL's NXT Vision software that enhances images, videos, and games, which I did activate when I was testing. The only big downside is the lack of damage-resistant glass like Corning Gorilla Glass, so be careful. If this review's been helpful so far, please give it a like. Thank you for that. That's too much chocolate. Does the battery charge quickly and last all day? It doesn't charge quickly, but it can last 2 days on a single charge. The 20sc comes with a 10-watt charger in the box that takes just under 3 hours to charge from 1 to 100%, which is definitely slow, so you'll probably have to charge this phone overnight. But with the 5000 milliamp hour battery, hopefully you're only charging every other night. I was able to get through 2 days on a charge easily, with my typical YouTube watching, web browsing, podcast streaming, and just normal use. I'm curious, do you still drink chocolate milk? Let me know in the comments. Is the Tcl20sc reliable? Yes, the near-stock Android experience on this phone is clean, and I didn't find any major bugs. There are 3 weird software issues that I ran into though. The first is that you can't double tap the screen to lock the device. You have to physically hit the power button or let the screen time out. You can double tap to wake, but not sleep, which seems strange. This is a feature I have to have, so I installed Hyperion Launcher since it allows you to set up a double tap to lock gesture. But that brought up a second issue. You lose gesture navigation when you switch to a third-party launcher. It only happens when you assign the new launcher as the default, so maybe you could find a workaround to keep from switching to 3-button navigation, but I couldn't. Lastly, the 20sc would get confused when I would close the Hyperion Launcher settings window and the phone would temporarily go back to the stock TCL launcher until I hit the home button. I tested with Nova Launcher and the same thing happened, except that it reverted to Hyperion Launcher. Not a huge issue, just strange again. The camera's not good, but it's okay in daylight. The 20sc has a 48 megapixel main camera, 5 megapixel wide, and 2 megapixel macro. On the front, there's a 13 megapixel selfie camera in this pretty large notch. Like a lot of low price budget phones, I think it's worthwhile to install GCam, just to see if you get better results. So I did. As far as the images from the main camera, they come out fine if there's enough light, and it does an okay job with portrait mode, especially GCam, even with the selfie camera. And if you don't like any other GCam images, you'll definitely want to at least use GCam for night mode, considering I can't even tell a difference whether the night mode is on or off for the TCL camera. One note on GCam, it did take a while to find a port that wouldn't crash on this phone, and even the port I ended up using would occasionally give me a green picture and I would have to toggle auto white balance on and off. If you need to know how to install GCam, please check out my GCam installation guide video right here. For audio, there are stereo speakers, but the sound quality is just okay. The earpiece speaker is especially weak, and both speakers distort at high volumes. You can adjust the left and right level between the 2 speakers, but it doesn't help that much. There's also a headphone jack. While 76 bottles of chocolate syrup does sound delicious, if you're in the market for a budget smartphone, I would say the Tcl20sc is a better purchase. You get a surprisingly quick device with a very big screen and a battery that will probably last you 2 days. I really am amazed that I could switch from a phone twice the Tcl20sc's price, like my Poco F3, and be generally okay with it. Hey, you can even shop for chocolate syrup with it. In fact, please check out the affiliate links below if you want to shop for chocolate syrup or even the Tcl20sc. It doesn't add any additional cost to you, and it helps me put a little bit more money into the channel. If you made it this far, thank you, and please consider subscribing. I have a 3-way comparison between between this phone, the Samsung A03s, and the OnePlus Nord N200 coming up soon, and that should be pretty useful. As always, if you have a question, please leave a comment, and I will answer it perfectly.